In 1907, in the cold and mist-thick forests surrounding Lonquimay in Chile's Araucanía region, a group of 4 experienced mule drivers vanished on a trail known only to locals. A narrow path cutting through volcanic ridges and ancient araucaria forests. The men, all lifelong travelers of the highlands, left town carrying supplies to a remote settlement just 14 kilometers away. They were expected to return in 2 days. Instead, they were found wandering aimlessly on the trail 36 hours later, their clothes torn, their eyes vacant, muttering incoherent phrases about voices in the fog and something walking behind the trees. Within minutes of being discovered, all 4 men sprinted back into the forest, screaming, and disappeared permanently. Searchers found no footprints beyond the point where the men ran. No broken branches, no signs of struggle. The volcanic soil, normally perfect for tracking, showed nothing. Their abandoned mules stood trembling but unharmed near the trailhead. Days later, investigators found strange markings carved into a fallen log. Markings none of the men had ever used, and no community in the region recognized. This is the complete reconstruction of the mystery the locals still call La Senda Quebrada, the broken trail, a place where sanity ends before the forest does. This story is presented for narrative and entertainment purposes only. The Araucanía highlands of Chile are unlike any other landscape in South America. Rugged volcanic ridges slice through the sky. Araucaria trees stand like prehistoric sentinels, and fog rolls in thick enough to erase entire valleys. In winter, the wind comes fast and sharp, bending branches and carrying sounds in strange directions. Even today, many of its trails remain isolated, used only by shepherds and forestry workers. But in the early 1900s, this land was even wilder, a place where the modern world had barely arrived, and where travelers relied not on maps, but on memory and instinct. The trail that concerns this investigation lay just east of Lonquimay, a path carved by generations of Mapuche herders. It connected the town to a remote settlement hidden between ridges, and though the journey was short, it was known for unsettling stories. Whispers heard between the trees, footsteps that followed travelers but left no tracks, sudden cold pockets where the air felt wrong. The 4 men who vanished here, Don Martin, Esteban Rivas, Los Hermanos Farfan, were not frightened easily. They had crossed blizzards, forded icy rivers, survived rockfall. None of them were men prone to fear or hallucination. Yet the trail reduced them to terror before erasing them completely. Before we begin the full investigation, please subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And tell me, from which city and country are you listening today? The morning of July 3, 1907, began with a soft frost over Lonquimay. Thick mist clung to the rooftops and turned the rising sun into a pale blur. The 4 mule drivers arrived early at the corral to load their goods: sacks of flour, lantern oil, tobacco, spare blankets. Don Martin, the oldest, joked with the stableman that the fog wanted to sleep a little longer. Esteban Rivas, the most superstitious, touched a wooden beam for luck. The Farfan brothers argued over who packed the kettle. Nothing about their behavior suggested fear. But the stableman recalled one detail later. When the men finished tightening the saddle straps, all 4 grew silent at the same time. Their heads turned toward the eastern ridge, toward the trail. "What was that?" asked Rivas. The stableman heard nothing. Minutes later, the men started down the path, their mules stepping cautiously on the frozen ground. The fog swallowed them almost immediately. The first hours of the journey seemed normal. Tracks showed they maintained a steady pace. At one point, they stopped to eat. Crumbs of bread were found under a pine, and a cigarette butt lay near a volcanic rock. But around noon, everything changed. A shepherd named Tomás Quiñones reported hearing men's voices echoing strangely through the valley. Not shouting, not singing, but speaking rapidly, overlapping each other as if confused. He moved closer, thinking someone was injured. Then he heard it. A single, sharp cry, not of pain, but of terror, cut short mid-breath. When Tomás called out, the valley returned nothing but fog. Hours later, before sunset, the 4 men reappeared. But not at the destination. They stumbled back along the trail toward Lonquimay. Their faces were pale, their eyes unfocused, their movements clumsy. Tomás approached. "Where is your cargo?" he asked. None of the men answered. Then Don Martin whispered, "Don't let the fog touch you." Moments later, all four bolted back into the forest, screaming. That was the last time anyone ever saw them alive. When word reached Lonquimay, 20 men formed a search party. They expected to find the four mule drivers injured, hiding, or lost. Instead, they found something far stranger. Just half a kilometer into the trail, the searchers discovered all three mules standing still, trembling violently. Their reins hung loosely from the saddles, as if dropped suddenly. The ground around them revealed odd details. The mules' hoofprints circled erratically, as if they had tried to turn back but were blocked. The men's footprints, however, were normal, calm, orderly, until they abruptly stopped. No drag marks, no sign of someone running, no sign of someone falling. It was as if the men had walked forward and then simply stopped existing. Nearby, one mule saddle was torn, but not by claws or teeth. The leather was shredded in straight, parallel lines, too clean to be animal damage. Further along, searchers found a blanket tied into a knot none of the men used. The knot resembled something Mapuche children used as a game, yet it was tied with adult strength. Half an hour deeper into the trail, they found something chilling. 4 parallel depressions in the soil, spaced evenly apart, as if all 4 men had stood still side by side. And then nothing. No footprints leading away. A hunter in the group whispered. They lined up, or they were placed. The forest grew unnaturally quiet. Even the wind failed to move the branches. Then one of the men heard it. A faint tapping sound, like 2 stones knocking together. Tap, 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 tap. It came from ahead, then behind them, then from the left. But when they moved toward the sound, it shifted again. The forest felt alive and watching. The things they left behind and the things that should not exist. As the search moved deeper into the volcanic forest, the men began finding strange objects left behind. 1. The canteen. Esteban Rivas's metal canteen was found hanging from a branch 2 meters above the ground, far higher than any man could reach without climbing. Yet there were no scratch marks, no disturbed bark, and no broken branches below it. It looked placed deliberately. 2. The Farfan brothers' notebook. The brothers shared a pocket notebook for route notes. It was found open on a fallen log with the last line reading, El aire cambia, no respira igual. The air changes, it doesn't breathe the same. The graphite indentation showed the writer pressed hard, as if frightened or writing in haste. But the page had no smudges, no sweat marks, which would be impossible for men in panic. The torn poncho. Don Martin's poncho lay perfectly folded on a section of basalt rock, but the bottom section was torn into 4 long strips, shredded with surgical precision. Not by animals, not by blades, something else. 4. The footprint. Hours later, searchers found a single footprint in a patch of volcanic ash, smaller than any of the 4 men's feet. A child's footprint. It faced the opposite direction of the trail, but the nearest settlement was 20 kilometers away. No child had been there. Searchers exchanged glances, uneasy. 5. The wooden sculpture. At the base of an ancient araucaria tree, they found a carved wooden figure, freshly cut. It depicted 4 men standing in a line. All 4 figures had no faces. One searcher refused to continue, muttering prayers under his breath. The others pressed on. What they found next confirmed their worst fears. The trail itself had changed. Word spread to Mapuche communities nearby. Elders came to observe the search site. After only minutes, they told the searchers, La senda se quebró. The trail has broken. They explained that some trails do not lead through land but through air, meaning through places where the world grows thin. According to them, this part of Lonquimay was known to have huecos de viento, wind hollows, pockets where sound dies, direction bends, and the world forgets to hold you. One elder said, if a man does not listen to the forest listens to him. They described a piau, phenomenon called Kuyan Rakiduam, the moon's memory, a place where events repeat, where people hear things from the past or from paths they did not walk. Investigators dismissed this, but then something happened. A searcher named Hernan began muttering incoherently. He claimed he heard 4 men breathing behind him, but when he turned, no one was there. Minutes later, he dropped to his knees, covering his ears, screaming, "They're whispering inside the fog!" The fog thickened rapidly, moving unnaturally low to the ground. Searchers grabbed Hernan and pulled him back toward the trailhead. His pulse was racing. His eyes were wide and glassy, the same vacant stare described by Shepherd Tomas when he saw the mule drivers earlier. Whatever drove the four men mad had brushed against Hernan as well. The head searcher gave the order, "We leave, now." But the trail behind them had shifted. On the 9th day of the search, the forest returned something. But not the men. A young boy named Lautaro, living near the lower valley, came running to town at dawn, shouting that he had found something strange by the river's edge. Searchers followed him. There, neatly arranged on a flat stone, as if placed gently, were 4 items. Don Martin's poncho strips, now braided together Esteban's silver ring, still warm to the touch. One of the Farfan brothers' hats, folded in half a wooden carving of a face, blank, unfinished. But the ground around the stone was untouched. No footprints, no animal tracks, no drag marks. The stone itself was dry, though it had rained heavily the night before. Experts could not explain how the objects arrived there, or why they appeared untouched by water or mud. That night, near the edge of the trail, several townspeople claimed they heard 4 voices, distant, strained, as if carried from far away, calling for help. But when searchers followed the sound, the forest swallowed it whole. The trail was sealed soon after. Locals refuse to walk it to this day. Some say, on rare fog-heavy mornings, they see silhouettes moving through the trees. Some swear they hear footsteps pacing behind them. Others say the trail still remembers the 4 men and waits patiently for the next ones who forget to listen. The disappearance of Don Martin, Esteban Rivas, and the Farfan brothers remains one of the most haunting unsolved vanishings in Chilean history. 4 experienced travelers set out on a familiar path, only to return briefly in terror, then vanish again, leaving no tracks, no bodies, and no explanation. Their belongings reappeared in impossible places, untouched by weather or animals. Their final footprints ended cleanly, as if interrupted by something the land refuses to reveal. Authorities blamed disorientation, hypothermia, even puma attacks, theories dismantled by the physical evidence. The Mapuche elders spoke of broken trails, thin places, and forests that listen. Whether the men fell victim to an unknown natural phenomenon, or to something older than the colonial maps that tried to define this land, the truth has never surfaced. Today, residents of Lonquimay still avoid the path after dusk. Some claim they hear whispers when the fog thickens. Others swear they've seen 4 figures standing silently among the araucarias, watching the trail they once walked. But the forest gives nothing back. Not answers, not bodies, not sanity. Thank you for listening to this investigation. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And tell me, from which city and country are you listening today?